terrible. He was supposed to do much more. He was supposed to, but he forgot to say that we're such a full house that to reassure you that the performances are short. You're going to really love them. So those of you who are standing, don't worry too much. The other thing he should have told you is that today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Raymond. Raymond is the only one who came dressed in proper Edwardian gear this evening, but he dresses like this every day, so there's no change. So listen, thank you so much. And first of all, I suppose, before we get into the celebration of the evening, just to say that, of course, this is also a very sad week for India. We've been in a very dark mood for the last number of days since that terrible tragedy happened. And I know that all of you have had ample opportunity to kind of pay our respect to the victims, so I won't do that this evening, but I just felt it would be very odd to get into a celebration mode without remembering that terrible tragedy and the loss of life, and of course our thoughts are with all of those people. So, like Raymond said, it's so exciting to be here in the wonderful Kiran Nadar Museum, and I want to thank you for celebrating this anniversary with us. It's Bloomsday, and a celebration of a day, one day in Joyce's masterpiece, Ulysses, that takes place. But this year, in fact, it's a little bit interesting because our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, this is a big event for us throughout the world, but we decided that this should be called this year's Bloomsday and Beyond, because the focus is not just on Joyce, but on the Irish literary canon, and our many successful authors and writers up to the present day who have taken on the mantle of Joyce, and our Nobel laureates such as Shaw and Yeats and Beckett and Seamus Heaney and all those famous names that you know, but there's a whole new generation of writers. So today I wanted to assure you all, you don't need to like James Joyce today, but it helps, because we're in for a little bit of a treat later. So, but what I've discovered since I've come to India just 2 years ago is the voracious appetite that Indians have for literature. And indeed for Irish literature, it really, really surprised me. We're so far apart geographically, but so close when it comes to literature. In Jaipur and Kerala, and I see my colleagues from the Norwegian Embassy that play a big role in the Jaipur Literature Festival, but these are some of the finest literary festivals in the world. And I've been struck by the cross-section of Indian society that turns up in their thousands, and how respectful and engaged these audiences are on the altar of literature. And they're so passionate about it, of all ages. So it's not just the old white-haired ones like me, it's young and old who come and they're so passionate. So the embassy, we're trying to be a champion of Irish literature in India. And we see it as a really important way, as a small country located on the westernmost part of Europe, to remind India that we are here, and that we have a history and we have a partnership. So we've supported the participation of great writers such as John Boyne, or last year the Booker Prize winner Paul Lynch, and this year the wonderful Indian-Irish author Kaivalya Plays at the JLF, and we're going to continue to do that. Raymond mentioned last year, I unfortunately missed this event, but last year Delhi's #1 Joycean, I'm sure you all know him if you read the Hindustan Times, but Mayank Austin Sufi, he's known as the Delhi Wali. He spoke about the confluences between Joyce's Dublin and the Delhi that's portrayed by him in his column every day in the Hindustan Times. So this year, we really pushed the boat out, and that's why Mayank is not here, because he's in Dublin. And in fact, before I came to the stage, I had a call from my wife, who had just finished having coffee with him at the Martello Tower in Sandycove, near where we live. So we brought him to Dublin this year, and every day he's been writing his column in the Hindustan Times but it's been rechristened the Dublin Walla for this week. So that just tells you, so if you want to understand a little bit about Joyce and the connections between Delhi and Dublin, go online, look at his columns for the last couple of days and for the next few, because he's ambassador for all of this. So we have a wonderful relationship with the English language, of course, and as does India, which I think goes some way to explaining why both countries have produced such masters in English literature. It's precisely because it's not our language. And so writers like Oscar Wilde and Shaw have been able to satirize and expose the absurdities of English high society and social structures so clinically. English is the language of our colonizer, but we speak it better. It is there to be subverted, the English language, and this is what drives the innovation and the fearlessness of Joyce's experimentation of the form of the novel. But this experimentation is often what drives people away from books. And I have to admit, I'm one of those people, like Ulysses. You can be a little bit afraid. Can we understand this? Can I manage this? It seems so unnavigable. Or his final novel, Finnegan's Wake. If you haven't read Ulysses, please don't be intimidated by the book or by the mythology that's been built up around it. Or the mythology, even the name Ulysses that alludes. This is a book for everybody. You can dip in, dip out, and in fact, in his column for the Irish Times this week, the Delhi Walla said, it doesn't matter what page you open up, you can start all over again. And that's in some way the beauty of it. But today is not about Ulysses, and appropriately enough, the performances for today are not from that book, but they're from the first book, Dubliners, which is a lovely collection of loosely intertwined short stories. Dubliners, in fact, is the perfect introduction to Joyce for those of you who haven't yet delved in. It's not written in a very high modernist style of Ulysses, and it's easier to understand. Joyce began writing Dubliners in 1904, and the same year that the action of Ulysses actually takes place. So he wrote this book in the actual year when Bloomsday occurs, this one day that Ulysses is written about. He was only, imagine, 25 years of age when he completed the collection. But it took another 7 years before the book was finally published. And just before this evening, I was interviewed, and people were asking me what was happening at that time in 1907. And I won't give you a big, long lecture, but it was a really heady time because it was before our independence. And just a short period later, in 1916, we would have what was a failed revolution in terms of the Easter 1916 rising, but which led to our independence as a free nation. So Dubliners, it's not highly experimental like Ulysses, but he faced a real struggle to have this book published due to the gritty realism of Dublin that he portrayed. It was a terrible city of paralysis in this book. He didn't shy away from showing the darker side of life, and what was then, actually, Dublin was the second largest city in the British Empire at that time. Ireland, and in fact Britain, probably wasn't ready for these kinds of honest depictions of alcoholism, corruption, moral decay, as well as seduction, exploitation, and sexual relationships. Can you imagine in a country where the Catholic Church held such sway that these themes were being raised by Joyce? So tonight, I just want you to enjoy the performance. I've spoken for way too long, but I wanted to just say thank you so much for coming out on a Sunday evening. It's so great to see such an eclectic mix of people today. And tonight, we're really fortunate to have an Indian take on Joyce. That's what's really making me excited. So I'm going to hand you over now to Varun from the Kaivalya Plays, and he's going to tell you about this Joyce project that we're partnering on for the coming year ahead. And he'll tell you a little bit about the performance that you're about to see. So, gur a míle maith agaibh go léir, tá an fun, tá an áthas an ghuill sibh linsa anocht. I'm just finishing in my language to say thank you very much for coming this evening, and over to Kaivalya. Thank you.